Good evening, good people. This is your host, Calvin Anderson, for the Check In With podcast, episode 9 today. Episode 9 here today on the 27th of November, 2024. I have my first male therapist. I know a lot of people have been asking me, Calvin, when are you going to get a male therapist on there? So today we have an amazing therapist. I'm going to introduce. My guest today is a qualified BACP registered counsellor, skilled in the person-centered therapeutic approach, a method that facilitates help and growth for clients by helping them to find their own answers to their problems through non-judgmental listening. Through several years of study and hundreds of client hours, my guest today has developed a range of acute person-centered counselling skills and currently practices at a local hospice and also privately. Coping with multiple bereavements in his family and the impact it has made on him, he has realized how important the need to talk and share problems is. It's also made our guest today understand that though everyone deals with their problems in different ways, the common thread is always the importance of talking about them. Ladies and gentlemen, give a warm welcome to Simon Brotherton. Simon, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for asking, Calvin, and thanks for having me.
No problem. Thank you so much for agreeing and coming on. It's such an honor to have you, Simon. There's so many places I could start, but maybe the first place, from our last conversation is to please explain and walk us through what walk and talk therapy is.
Right, well, yeah, I think the clue is in the name, in a way. But, just to talk a bit more about it. There are lots of different types of counselling to choose from. And what's a good fit for one person may not be the best fit for someone else. So I think it's good to have as many options as possible.
Yeah.
And some people who have counselling with me do so because they like the idea of counselling taking place in an open environment. In the outdoors and outside of four walls, they feel it's, a little easier to talk, and moments of silence are never awkward because there's always so much nature around to experience and, absorb.
Yeah.
And I think the thing about talking side by side rather than face to face, that can make all the difference for some people, with regards to, the nervousness we sometimes feel about being sat in a room with someone, but also the added bonus of getting the daily steps in. And some people do actually say that, I've clients who look forward to the sessions as physical exercise as well as mental support.
Mm-hmm.
And it's worth, just to expand on it, and because it might sound quite informal, it's the boundaries and confidentiality, they're absolutely as much of a serious consideration as in any session that would take place in a conventional room, for want of a better expression. And I have a counselling agreement that clients would sign that covers the practical aspects of being outdoors, as well as all the confidentiality things that we're familiar with as counsellors, though the confidentiality and boundaries and everything else. So I've got to add that bit in about practical concerns, things like that as well. And one of those is I'm at the mercy of the weather quite a lot when I do my sessions outdoors. We're in England.
Of course, yeah. English weather is just tumultuous.
It's always an inconvenience, when it's bad weather. But I'll go out whatever the conditions, and I've done. But I certainly wouldn't expect my clients to. So I always offer an online video service if the weather's so bad that it would inhibit the therapy, because we don't like to distract from it. But this rarely happens. And I found our sessions I've held in the rain can sometimes be intimate and more focused experience. It's and I'm lucky enough to have a local park that's well lit in the evening. You can offer evening sessions year round as well. So that's I found that I offer video sessions as well, but I'm very much finding a lot of my private work is the walk and talk that you've asked me about. So yeah.
You mentioned it in terms of like the confidentiality aspect. I know walk and talk therapy, you're not enclosed in a room. It's it's outdoors. So, to have that trust in you, Simon, to walk outside where it is public, where they could say something and someone could hear, but still being able to be vulnerable and walk and talk and still be able to share, I think is very, very powerful, and a testament to you as a therapist to share that space with. Have you ever done walk and talk therapy yourself?
Well, as a client?
As a client, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I haven't, though. Obviously, as counsellors, we have our own therapy, and I've had my own therapy, but it was indoors.
Yeah.
And I just sort of, I mean, it's not a new thing, walk and talk,
Yeah.
there's a few people doing it, but I like being outdoors in the nature, and I've understood what that brings to me. So I thought, combining the two, knowing that it was a thing, I think knowing that it was a thing helped me choose it as a thing, if you know what I mean, because I'm like, that's a thing, people do it, well, I can do it. And just to sort of go back on something you said, you've just got to be considerate of when you're with someone, and know if you're walking past someone, and those considerations of temporary, pausing, making sure you're not saying something, if there's something sensitive going on when someone walks past, because that happens. You've just got to be mindful of that, and it's just managing that as well, and and things like that. But yeah, I've never had an outdoor session myself. That's interesting. Maybe I should.
No, definitely. I'm thinking about it myself. Walk and talk. Especially a nice park. What thoughts may come, because I know there's probably a different process being outside and walking and being active instead of sitting down across from someone. So that's a very interesting thing to find out. Simon, what is it like, and you can go as far as you want with this in terms of unpacking it, is what is it like to be a male therapist? Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of places, like you say, there's a lot of things we could go into there. And I think when I started my counselling studies, reference was made by tutors, and the discussion was there about that it's quite often there's a lack of male counsellors, and that was a thing, that was something that people acknowledged, and how there was more female ones, and perhaps a traditional view of counselling that it was female counsellors. As it so happens in my studies, there were quite a few males on my course, so I didn't feel that, I never felt like I'm the only man in the class. There's quite a few males, and I never felt that was an issue. But I am aware that as a male counsellor, some men, particularly when talking about relationship issues, feel more comfortable with a male counsellor. But I'm always mindful of maintaining boundaries and being objective, and there's not colluding with them if that's the case, if that's the issue, and that's all things we should be aware of as counsellors anyway. And when I'm doing my bereavement work at the hospice, one of the questions that we ask clients is if they have a preference of gender for the counsellor, because this is purely because we wouldn't want anything to inhibit the effectiveness of the service of the counselling relationship. If someone's got a particular issue, a gender is going to be an issue in their session. Absolutely, you don't want to be the wrong counsellor for them. You put the clients first, and if your gender is an issue, not through any fault of your own, but because you've got to meet the client where they are, and so you've got to be mindful of that. But I don't feel that gender is. I've not had. It's very rare that someone would have that issue, and obviously I see men and women in the bereavement practice, quite a lot, and it's not been an issue there. It's just giving them that space to talk, really.
I like how you mentioned, when you were training, and the amount of men that were on your course, and having that I want to say brotherhood / camaraderie within the classroom, and being able to be vulnerable, being able to share, I think is very powerful. That's very powerful.
Yeah. Sorry, it absolutely is. We didn't. For us, it was never that. What was really good about all my studies, but particularly in my most recent one, where you really delve into that personal development. We're all equal. We didn't. The fact that we're men and women didn't seem to impact, but the male people on the course were conscious of that. That they were, that and like that, almost like that they weren't the only male on it. We all, we weren't conscious of each other's gender and men and women, and it was good. It was a good positive experience. I'm grateful for it.
I love that, Simon. Simon, have you faced any challenges being a male therapist?
I think in terms of trying to think now, that's a difficult one. I mean, I think specifically to be male, I think not so much professionally. I think our studies and they put us through the ringer, and we learn a lot about ourselves at that point. And I think it's just about being the most genuine person we can be. So if we project that,
and
we're projecting our genuine nature, people see it and they trust us. So I'd like to think that people would, I'd project that trust and it wouldn't be an issue. But, on the other hand, I think on a practical level, being male does impact walk and talk work, specifically, for example, because I'm mindful of, a female client who might approach me, doesn't know me, not going to be what comfortable walking around the park at night,
Of course.
I can understand why someone would not want that, and it's sad, and it's really unfortunate we have to think like that, but I can totally understand why someone would think that, and it's not been an issue. It just, most of my walk and talk clients have, vast majority have been male, but whether that was a factor or not, but I don't suppose it's a challenge, but maybe it is in that area of work. Perhaps it is, yeah.
And I love how you mentioned in terms of the safety aspect, in terms of if it was a female client and walking through a park and, just being mindful of that. I really love that, Simon, just in terms of mentioning there is a safety aspect when it comes to working with female clients in a walk-in talk therapy session. How comes there isn't many male therapists, Simon?
Yeah, I think I think a lot of it is based on traditional expectations of men, certainly my parents, grandparents' generation, being strong, unemotional types, stoic, not free with their emotions, not openly showing their emotions, of being the strong one.
Yeah.
That's a strong male role model that a lot of us grow up with, isn't it? That's a hangover from the war, the second way, but those generations pass that down, and I think it's a very traditional thing, certainly something I've, grown up with from my parents and grandparents. But I think times are changing, and as we can both testify, there's more male counsellors out there, and but it takes time to change. And I think we're in one of those periods of change now. I'd like to think that in the future that there's going to be a balance, and there is more exposure to. You'll be aware of it when I feel that you work. There's so much exposure about encouraging men to be open with their emotions, and absolutely that's great. That exposure is great, but we need that support, and sometimes I think having men in that environment as well could encourage that. Perhaps it's just, yeah.
I would agree with you in terms of, and I guess it comes down to representation, right? If you see someone who looks like you, or you see a male within a field where you probably see it as heavily female dominated, but you see a male in there now, maybe there does come an encouragement to say, you know what, I would like to go to therapy. I'd definitely love to see a male therapist, because a man can understand a man and in ways that maybe a woman can't. Or maybe that's something that a male may need to be able to open up and may not feel judged or feel like, they're being scrutinized. And not to say that women do that, but it's good for a male to see, okay, there is a male therapist, there are male therapists. Let me just try. Let me be, or let me avail myself to go and start this process and see what happens.
No, I think that's a really good point you made there. And I think obviously a good counsellor is a good counsellor irrespective of the gender. And of course, any counsellor, a female counsellor, is going to give absolutely the same non-judgmental space that anyone would give. But it's exactly like you say, it's about perhaps the client isn't ready for that. Perhaps the client, because of where he's at and he's what he's bringing with him. A male counsellor is the difference between him having therapy or not. It's really kind of like that. Yeah.
Definitely. Simon, what is it like working with male clients, men? What's it like working with them?
Well, I guess sometimes we've been speaking about this, haven't we, a bit in the previous question, but I think sometimes the expectations of how they should be and that traditional male role model thing comes out in the sessions, but it depends on the presenting issue, I think. And as I touched on earlier, I found that male clients who come to walk and talk sessions to work through, they tend to be working through relationship, family or work issues. And they find it easy to talk freely. But I couldn't honestly say that was down to me being male,
Yeah.
It's just what I've noticed. And male clients that I've seen at the hospice and the bereavement setting, I think with that, it's very much the counselling room is the place where they can share what's on their minds without fear of judgment, perhaps, from family members. And if they're bringing with them that expectation that we also just been speaking of, maybe they're the patriarchal figure, maybe they're meant to be strong, when they're getting the counselling room, I don't have to be that guy now. I can just, this is my place to just not have to be strong for everyone around me. And I do get a sense of that sometimes from male clients,
Yeah. That's very powerful, Simon. Just to touch upon that quickly, when you mentioned, the male being the patriarch, being the head of the household, being the, what should I say? Being the superhero, the Superman that everyone depends on. And then coming into the counseling space with you or another male therapist and being able to take off their cape, take off their crown, take off these roles and just take a breath and say, this is who I really am. This is my space. This is my break to just really just let all these emotions that I may not necessarily be able to showcase to family or friends or my social circles, only because the role that I carry on my shoulders is so impactful that I'm not allowed to show this specific emotion. Not because I don't want to, just because I'm just held in a certain way that I have to keep that composure. So no, that I really love that. I really love because it just sounds like when you said it, it sounded like coming into a space, they just take that, like that breath to just really just unpack and relax and let all the thoughts that they've been carrying off in the session. So that's really good. Really good.
Yeah. That's it. It's absolutely, and I think that's a big thing with especially with bereavement stuff, because when someone's grieving, it's other people are grieving as well, and they want to be the strong one.
Yeah,
they want to be strong with the other people, and giving them that space is really important.
Before I go into the next question, Simon, because you just mentioned something so specific as well in terms of bereavement. Can you talk to me on, as men, as males, and the positions we carry, how do we manage bereavement? Like what do you think, or you can even give your own experience if you like. How do we take it on, and then how do we express it?
Well, it's a very there's lots of bereavement models and lots of ways to look at it, and I think one of the reasons there's lots of models is because everybody is different.
Yeah.
And when you're working as a bereavement therapist, part of it is you're not just applying a model to someone and saying, "Oh, that's going to work for you because I've read this and that." It's about looking at those and thinking, you can pick up on a client, and I'm just touching on what you said about, having your own experiences of it. There are elements of it that will work with you, like visualizing things or metaphors. It's the same for any issue, but it's about trying things on for size with the client and saying, if a client really connects to the image of putting things in boxes on a shelf is one that talks for some people. It really does visualize an issue and if a client is very visual and likes to picture things, you can take that and run with it, and it's finding. And sometimes they'll mention their own metaphor that they've seen or learned or that feels right for them. Run with the metaphor and then go with it, because it's clearly a way that they relate to what's going on inside their head. So he's right, well, you're going with the sort of ocean and the water metaphor here, or you're going with the climbing metaphor or whatever. So I'll stick with that, and it's something that we can use. And it's, I think it's very much about meeting the person where they are and finding the way that they connect with, and a way of explaining what is such a complex and difficult thing to navigate, giving them some pointers. And that's what I say to people. It's about giving you the tools to do a lot of the work on your own.
Yeah.
Which is what, as you know, and that's the thing with cancer. It's encouraging people to look at it a different way. And with bereavement, it's such a huge thing, and it's giving them that encouragement, or in ways of looking at it in a different way, to just give them the tools to sort of rebuild. And one of the common things that is common throughout it, wherever, is that there is an expectation of grief being a sort of graph, and it's like, oh, we're suddenly going to get better, but it's not. It's like waves, it's ups and downs.
Yeah.
And a big thing that I find is important is make people aware that those ups and downs are normal, and just because they have a down, it doesn't mean they're going backwards or they're sliding.
Yeah.
Grief is very much about ups and downs, because your mind's turning over all these different aspects, and one, you might not have occurred to you something, and then 3 weeks later something hits you, and it's very much the ups and downs, and a big part of it is navigating that. Is knowing that there are going to be these ups and downs, and that's normal.
I love how you spoke about there are the different models, but not every model is going to attain or look appealing to one person. It will always be different for someone, and what they take in terms of the tools that we give them is entirely up to them if they choose to or not.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I guess, like you said, applying it and being able to navigate through it, because you said so rightly, is when bereavement hits or when grief starts, and we begin to let our thoughts come to the surface, and our emotions have a way of fluctuating in that period. Sometimes there isn't time to read something or speak to anyone. We just got to be able to navigate it. And with the tools being given, this, okay, what tool can I use from the box I've been given from my therapist, or what can I use at this time, and how can I use it to the best of my ability at my current state? Because sometimes all you can do is cry. Sometimes you can't say anything, you can't do anything. You just have to sit with how you're feeling. So I really, really appreciate that, Simon, in terms of being able to navigate through your emotions with tools being given. So that's really important, really important. I mentioned in the beginning that, you do your private practice and you also work in a hospice. Can you give us, Simon, the difference in working in a hospice than working in private practice?
Well, yeah, I mean, with the hospice work, as we've discussed, the issues they're always bereavement related. So whether that's pre or post bereavement for both patients and relatives. So that could be working with people who have a terminal diagnosis and you support them through that. It could be someone who's caring for someone with a terminal diagnosis, and that's then you navigate in everything that they're living with and going through. And obviously, he's post-bereavement as well, supporting relatives. So there is those different aspects within that. And there's a structure and a referral and an assessment process which needs to be followed, which, a lot of other therapists are aware of different forms and things, whatever agencies we work for. These are one that we sort of structure ourselves, but it generally does involve more paperwork and more structured assessments. There's also a guideline of a fixed number of sessions. So we'll work with each client. It's perhaps a little more focused and not completely open-ended. So there is that. But in private work, clients tend to be more flexible, and I don't impose any minimum or maximum sessions. And obviously, I've still got agreements and cancellation policies and a bit of paperwork, just as I would in the hospice. So but there's very much people, with different presenting issues that haven't got that perhaps urgency is the wrong word, but if it's life issues, they might want a bit more time in between sessions until something else happens, time to reflect and shoot things over. So I found that very much just say, well, should we book in next time, or do you want to let me know when? That tends to work better with that. But, there is some crossover because I've introduced walk and talk at the hospice now, which is...
wow, that's amazing.
So, yeah, thanks. I'm trying to just... It's a good option for people who, I mentioned, just as an example, but I mentioned about carers for people who have got a terminal diagnosis. So they've had a client who perhaps they're a carer, they don't get out much. They have to be at home a lot of the time. They go out for medical appointments. When they come for a counselling session, it's good for them to have that space, but they do genuinely think, you know what, I can have a bit of stretch my legs a bit while I'm doing it. So some people do relate to it in that way as well. So we're lucky enough to have some nice grounds at the hospice, and so why don't we use them? And if a client feels that they're an active client and they like the idea of being out, then we can give them that option. So that's that's an element of killing two birds with one stone, I guess, if they can get some fresh air and while they're having the session. So yeah, that's good.
Simon, I love that you introduced walk and talk therapy in a hospice. Tell me and you can give me, I guess, your thoughts about making an initiative and I guess the impact it's had so far. What made you say, okay, this is where I'm working, let me introduce walk and talk therapy? What was your initial thoughts behind it, and what have you seen through these sessions that you could share with us today?
I think initially, like I said, there was the one that we had a space to do it, and some grounds was like, well, we talk a lot about the grounds, and they're a big part of the hospice, and because the public, not in a bereavement related way, it can be a place where the public comes. So, and because I was already offering that service privately, I thought, well, we've nothing lost here. We've got potentially another counselling space, which always, from a practical point of view, is never a bad thing because you've always got that option there. So from a practical point of view, it was another way of like, seeing perhaps more clients. But also it was, I guess, having something that was a bit more, geared towards people who, like I said, perhaps would really value the stretching the legs, and also perhaps more reluctant to sit in a room. That thing we were talking about earlier, that can be a factor for some people. So I suppose giving them the option, and I've found that some people have actually said that the feedback I've had from it with some clients, it's been good to have that space where they are getting out and getting the fresh air as well as getting away from what they've got on, and other ones who've trying to get the fitness back up as well as the mental health, and the same. Well, actually, I've got to build some steps up because my personal trainer's told me, so why don't I do some of it in the section, various things really, but people have found it beneficial, and some clients who like nature, or they like the idea of being out, because we get not that it distracts from the session or anything, but you do see birds and things like that, and it's quite a nature friendly sort of environment. So clients who have a connection with nature appreciate that, because that's the other thing as well. There's numerous places to sit during the route. One of the things I have to consider when I'm doing that privately as well, especially if you're working with older clients. You've got to work it out and give them. Sometimes you'll walk for a bit and just sit to give them a rest, and those have got some nice viewpoints there. So I found that's good as well, and that's something positive. I found that people have connected with nature when they're sitting just for a few minutes to do a bit of paperwork or something.
That's very impactful, Simon, especially when you speak about the grounds, because usually in a hospice, the grounds are very beautiful and elegant, and they have that poise about them, and to initiate what you've initiated on in that space, I highly commend you, and I think that's such a powerful thing you've done.
Thank you. Yeah. it's hopefully it helps us help more people. So
Definitely. Simon, what made you go into specializing in bereavement? And is there any advice you would give to our listeners today?
I think as you perhaps Matt, I touched on in the start when you were introducing me, it's very much my own losses and my own bereavements. What made me want to become a counsellor and work specifically in bereavement. When I was going through a particularly tough time, just picking up the phone and talking to someone who wasn't working through their own grief as well, because I touched on that before, and I've had personal experience that myself. Like, I can't offload on this family member because they're grieving as well, and they're also grieving someone else as well, and it's so complicated. So it just made a huge difference for me picking up the phone and speaking to someone who just listened and who was impartial, and that was so helpful for me. And I found this made me want to learn more about it, really. And then I thought, well, maybe I can help people in the same way, because it was such a help for me. And so that's what got me thinking and sort of retraining a bit later in life, and having a career change into that. And I suppose touching on that in terms of what you said about advice, I'd just say it's never too late to don't ever think you're too old to start doing something new, because life experience counts for so much in counselling.
Yeah.
Especially in bereavement counselling, and it does help with that. And I don't think you're too old to retrain is one thing. But in terms of more advice, I just you be prepared for the emotionally demanding nature of the work, and the fact that what you hear from clients could bring up your own issues, and working through your own losses by having your own therapy.
Yeah,
it's vital. And it shows you've got to acknowledge them and that you're aware of them, because if you don't acknowledge them, they'll creep up and bite you in a session. You've got to doesn't mean it's easy, don't say it's going to come up, but the point is you're prepared for it, and that's the difference. And so much is said when you're doing your studies about you'll learn yourself, and you'll learn all about yourself. Whereas I was like, I know who I am, what are they talking about? And then when I did my studies, I was like, oh yeah, I really didn't know. Then you'll know properly.
Definitely.
So, and it's like, yeah, and I think that extends to the bereavement nature of things. It's specifically on that, just to finish answering your question. I think you've got to be aware, and it's another thing as well. Bereavement loss is the same, but it's different. Loss can be loss of jobs, loss of independence. There's lots of things connected to loss. So if you've had other losses, even if you've not had any bereavement, you've had other losses in your life, sometimes it can bring that up as well. So it's just being prepared and do what we should all do, really, and prepare ourselves and look after ourselves first.
You said something so key, Simon, when you said, if you don't acknowledge your feelings and emotions, they can just come up and bite you at any point. And I think that's so important that you said that, for the listeners to, I guess, understand that, you can speak about it. You don't have to hold it in. And how healthy it is to be able to let it surface and be able to express it in the way that you can at that time. And eventually you'll be able to express it in a different way, which, not that it will never ever affect you, but your stance on it and the way it impacted you in the beginning, over time, the impact will be very much different, because you've allowed yourself to feel the feelings, you've allowed yourself to go through the motions, you've allowed yourself to navigate in a place where, yes, you've overcome the actual initial feeling. It still hurts, of course, but you're in a place where you can handle when the emotions do surface.
Yeah, absolutely right. That's exactly it. It's just, you're ready for it. Yeah,
definitely ready for it. Simon, before you go, I got a few fun rapid questions I'd like to ask you. If you had to pick a remote location to work in, Simon, where would it be and why?
yeah. I love the outdoors, so I'm spoiled for choice with the remote locations, but I don't know. In a woodland, maybe. I do like my woodland.
Woodland,
yeah. Yeah, with imaginary internet connection, everything's just 4G, 5G, all the rest of it.
yeah.
But imagine that was the case. Just being in that, literally in amongst the nature, knowing that there isn't that distraction. So yeah.
What's your favorite season, Simon?
Yeah, I don't like different things out of all the seasons, but if pressed, it would have to be summer because I'm a bit of a lizard. I like to bask in the sun. I like getting a paperback. I like the sun. I like being there, the sea, with seeing the sun on the water.
Yeah.
And it relaxes me. And I get different things out of all the seasons, but I feel the most relaxed in summer. So yeah, it'd have to be summer.
Okay. Do you have a favorite quote, Simon?
I'm trying to think now. Well, yeah, I can't think of one off the top of my head. I'll have to try and come back to that. I always have. There's lots of things I read that resonate with me. I'm just trying to remember.
Yeah.
Obviously there's a lot of Carl Rogers ones who's the, person-centered guru who's trying to find the one that resonates. But I think Rogers put everything so simply that, we still come back to some of those things.
Nice. What is your favorite person-centered technique?
Well, there's lots of, I think we're more conscious of the techniques when we're studying them, and then they come naturally when we're working, and I think just, it's difficult to pinpoint it because you blend these together, but I've had so much value out of just, it's not necessarily just a person-centered technique, it's so much as a way of coming, but active listening is so important. I got so much about, and I can't remember who said this, but it might answer the second one. Feel free to research it. Music behind the words.
Music.
And that might be. Yeah, look up who that was. I think that is the one. We learned to listen to the music behind the words, and I've heard people paraphrase that. So, perhaps if you look up, I'm really sorry, I can't remember off the top of my head.
No, that's okay.
Away on my keyboard. But it kind of answers your previous question, and it ties in with that question, and that's exactly what it is. I think it's picking up on those. They're saying this, but what is going on? That music behind the words. I think that's a really good way of summing that up, and a really good way of linking in with that being a really favourite sort of technique or way of being in the session.
I love that, Simon. And last question is going to be a sentence that I'd like you to finish. If it wasn't for therapy, and you can finish the sentence.
I think it wasn't for therapy, I wouldn't understand the power of helping another person. I would, I think if it wasn't the therapy, I wouldn't have understood the impact of that therapeutic relationship and how important it can be to someone, how important it is to listen. I think if it wasn't the therapy, I wouldn't have fully understood how important it is to listen and actually listen to someone and give people that space. It's really helped me understand that the power of just being in, a space with someone and making a difference. And help find their own answers and all those things. It's a powerful thing.
Wow, that is very powerful. Very powerful, especially when you mentioned just listening, being someone who listens, being someone who's able to carry someone else's words and hold it for a time and, be able to guide and help that individual and in what they're saying and to paraphrase and to probe and to listen intently. Like I said, active listening as well, such a key and important thing in the work that we do. So thank you so much for sharing that with me, Simon. It's been It's been an absolute pleasure to host you this evening.
Thank you. Been a pleasure to be hosted.
Simon, where can people find you?
Well, you can get me on, obviously, LinkedIn. I'm on there there's a much more well-known Simon Brotherton. Probably got a LinkedIn profile, but you can find me on there. And also, I've got my own website. You can find out more about our work, get in contact, and that's insideandoutside.uk.
Perfect. I'll make sure I link all your links in the description for everything. Ladies and gentlemen, it's your host Calvin Anderson for the Check In With podcast. We've had Simon Brotherton today. Powerful, sharing so much about himself, sharing about his practice, sharing about so many things. And I know for the listeners, there's so much to take away. Even for myself, I feel like I've had a CPD from Simon today. Just of his knowledge and insight. So we thank Simon again. Thank you so much for just sharing and being vulnerable with us today. So that is us. Good night. Take care. God bless.